My aunt snatched Grandma's $5 million check out of my hands, ripped it into tiny pieces, and threw them right in my face, screaming that a useless leech like me didn't deserve a single penny. My greedy cousins laughed as the scraps scattered across the floor, thinking they had just erased my life-changing inheritance in front of the entire family. But they had no idea that Grandma had anticipated their cruelty decades ago. I didn't cry or argue. I simply bent down, picked up every shredded piece, and walked straight out the door. 15 minutes later, when I walked into the local bank, the bank manager took one look at those ripped pieces, made a single phone call, and turned my family's world completely upside down. Follow my story to the very end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Clara. I'm 27 years old, and for the last 3 grueling years, my life revolved around a small, dimly lit bedroom in my grandmother Evelyn's house. While my entire family treated her like an afterthought, I was the one holding her hand through sleepless nights, managing her oxygen tanks, and listening to her quiet stories of a life well lived. To the rest of the world, Grandma Evelyn was just a frail old woman living in a faded house. But to my Aunt Victoria and my cousin Richard, she was a walking paycheck. The morning of the estate reading, the atmosphere in the living room was suffocating. Fresh off the funeral, Aunt Victoria sat wrapped in her velvet coat, tapping her long acrylic nails against her designer handbag with cold impatience. Richard, 29 and perpetually unemployed, leaned against the mantelpiece with a smug smirk, already eyeing Grandma's antique collection like a scavenger waiting to pick a carcass clean. They hadn't visited once in 3 years. They hadn't called. But today, they were first in line. "Let's wrap this up," Aunt Victoria sneered, barely looking at me as I served water. "We all know why we're here. Clara was just the live-in help, so let's hand over the property deeds to the real family." The family attorney, Mr. Vance, adjusted his glasses and ignored her comment. Evelyn's instructions were precise, he said calmly, pulling a crisp, official document from his leather briefcase. "To Clara, for her unwavering love and sacrifice, Evelyn has granted a direct cashier's check." He reached over and placed a paper face-up on the mahogany table. It was a certified check made out to my name for exactly $5,000,000. For 3 seconds, the room went dead quiet. Then, Aunt Victoria exploded. "5 million," she shrieked, her face twisting into rage. "This is a mistake. This worthless leech manipulated an old woman." Before anyone could move, Victoria lunged across the table and snatched the check right out of my hands. With a sharp, violent tear, she ripped it straight down the middle. "You don't deserve a single penny," she spat, ripping the paper again and again until it was reduced to confetti. She threw the shredded scraps directly into my face. Richard burst out laughing, brushing a piece of paper off his sleeve. "Look at that, Clara. Your fortune just blew away." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I looked down at the floor, carefully bent down, and gathered every single shredded piece into my hands. Then I turned and walked straight out the front door. The heavy oak front door slammed shut behind me, cutting off the echo of Richard's cruel laughter. Outside, the autumn air was crisp and unforgiving, biting at my face as I stepped down the porch steps. My hands were shaking, but not from fear or sorrow. They were trembling with an electric mix of adrenaline and sudden clarity. In my palms, I tightly clutched the plastic sandwich bag where I'd carefully scooped up every single scrap of that torn $5 million check. As I walked down the driveway toward my battered old sedan, my phone began to vibrate violently in my pocket. Text message notifications flashed across the screen in rapid succession. "Hope you enjoyed your 5 minutes as a millionaire loser," read one from Richard. "Pack your bags by tonight. The house is ours now," came another from Aunt Victoria. I didn't reply. Instead, I silenced the phone, sat in the driver's seat, and took a deep breath. My mind drifted back to a quiet evening just 2 months before Grandma Evelyn passed away. She had taken my hand with her fragile, paper-thin fingers and looked straight into my eyes. "Clara," she had whispered with a sharp, knowing smile, "when I'm gone, your aunt and cousins will show you who they truly are. Greed makes people blind, my dear, but preparation makes you untouchable. Whatever happens, just take what is yours to First National Bank. They know what to do. I started the engine and drove straight toward J Street. Grandma had spent her final years playing the role of a helpless, forgotten old woman, but she was a retired chief auditor. She never left anything to chance. As I pulled into the bank parking lot, holding that bag of shredded paper, I realized I wasn't going there to beg for help. I was going there to trigger the trap she had set. The glass doors of First National Bank slid open with a soft hiss, welcoming me into the quiet warmth of the lobby. I walked directly to the customer service counter, clutching the plastic bag containing the shredded check, like it was a lifeline. "I need to speak with the senior bank manager, please," I told the teller, my voice remarkably steady. "It's regarding a draft from Evelyn Whitaker's estate." Minutes later, I was ushered into a spacious corner office lined with mahogany bookshelves. Sitting behind a sleek desk was Mr. Harrison, a sharp-dressed man in his 50s with wire-rimmed glasses and a discerning look. He stood up, offering a warm smile, but his expression quickly shifted to mild confusion as he saw what I placed onto his desk. I gently laid down the plastic bag, filled with paper scraps. "My family just tore up my inheritance check," I explained simply. "My grandmother told me to bring whatever remained straight to you." Mr. Harrison looked up at me, a flicker of doubt in his eyes, but he reached out and carefully unsealed the bag. Using a pair of silver tweezers, he emptied the confetti-like pieces onto a green velvet pad on his desk. He began arranging the larger fragments, searching for the check's serial number and the signature line. As his fingers pieced together the memo section at the bottom left corner, he suddenly froze. He pulled a magnifying glass from his drawer and leaned in close, examining a tiny, handwritten string of alphanumeric code written right beneath Grandma's signature. The color instantly drained from his face. His posture straightened, and he slowly lifted his head to look at me. The polite, patronizing look was completely gone, replaced by profound respect and awe. "Miss Clara," he said, his voice dropping to a low whisper, "your grandmother didn't just issue a check. She left a priority protocol." Mr. Harrison stood up from his desk, walked over to his office door, and quietly clicked the lock into place. He turned back to me, his expression a mix of professional gravity and suppressed satisfaction. "Miss Clara," he began, pulling a heavy blue folder from a locked safe behind his desk, "what your aunt tore up at that table wasn't actually your inheritance. That physical paper was merely a ceremonial draft. Your grandmother brought it in 3 weeks ago specifically to test your family's true intentions." I stared at him, my mind racing as the pieces began to click together. "A test." "Precisely," Mr. Harrison said, opening the folder to reveal a stack of legal documents stamped with official bank seals. Mrs. Evelyn Whitaker knew exactly how greedy and ruthless her daughter and grandson were. She knew that if she left you a standard check or property deed, they would attempt to bully, bribe, or destroy it to steal what was yours. He slid a high-security account certificate across the desk toward me. The moment that memo code was written onto that check, it established a conditional tracking system. The actual $5 million was transferred into an irrevocable trust under your sole name 2 days before your grandmother passed away. It was locked in a private vault account that no one, not your aunt, not their lawyers, and not even probate court, could ever touch. A breath I didn't realize I was holding escaped my chest. The paper scraps sitting on the desk were completely worthless to Aunt Victoria, but to me, they were proof that Grandma Evelyn had foreseen every single move her treacherous family would make. "So, tearing it up changed nothing?" I asked. Mr. Harrison smiled coldly. "Oh, it changed everything, Miss Clara, but not in the way your family thinks." Mr. Harrison leaned forward, placing a hand over the folder. "Your grandmother worked with our legal team to draft a very specific contingency clause in her primary estate will. She called it the hostile interference provision." He opened the document to a highlighted section and read aloud. "If any named beneficiary attempts to invalidate, physically destroy, or forcefully coerce the distribution of assets intended for Clara, that beneficiary immediately forfeits all rights to the primary estate." My jaw dropped. She set a trap for them. "A brilliant one," Mr. Harrison confirmed with a nod. By tearing up that ceremonial check in front of the estate attorney, Aunt Victoria and Richard didn't just display their cruelty, they legally committed physical destruction and interference. The moment those paper scraps were shredded, a self-executing trigger was activated. He turned his computer monitor toward me, showing a live dashboard of Evelyn's primary holdings. Under normal circumstances, your aunt and cousin were set to inherit the family mansion valued at $2 million, along with controlling shares in your family's real estate business. But because of their actions today, that entire inheritance has been permanently revoked. I watched in awe as Mr. Harrison clicked a single red button on his screen. The mansion and all remaining business assets are now being liquidated into your primary trust fund. Aunt Victoria and Richard haven't just lost the $5 million they tried to steal from you. They have officially wiped out their own multi-million-dollar inheritance, leaving themselves with absolutely nothing. Mr. Harrison picked up his office landline and placed a call directly to Mr. Vance, the estate attorney who had witnessed the morning's explosive outburst. Within seconds, the official declaration of forfeiture was signed, sealed, and electronically delivered to every party involved. 15 minutes had passed since Aunt Victoria had ripped up the check and thrown it in my face. Suddenly, my phone on the desk burst into life. It was no longer ringing with arrogant text messages. It was calling continuously. First Aunt Victoria, then Richard, then Bianca. When I finally clicked speaker, Aunt Victoria's voice came screeching through the speaker, breathless and shrill, stripped entirely of her previous smugness. "Clara, what is happening?" she wailed, hyperventilating on the line. "Mr. Vance just sent us a formal notice. He says the house is frozen. He says our business shares are gone, and we're being evicted. Tell him it was a joke. Tell him we were just acting out because of grief." In the background, I could hear Richard yelling frantically at someone in the room, his voice cracking with pure terror as he realized his free ride in life had just evaporated. "I'm afraid it wasn't a joke, Aunt Victoria," I said, my voice cool and calm. "You told me I didn't deserve a single penny, but Grandma knew you'd say that. You tore up my check, and in doing so, you tore up your own future." "Clara, please," she sobbed, begging like a child. "We're family. You can't do this to us." "You weren't family when she was dying," I replied softly and hung up the phone. Sitting in Mr. Harrison's office, feeling the quiet warmth of the afternoon sun stream through the window, a profound sense of peace washed over me. For 3 long years, I had poured my heart into taking care of Grandma Evelyn out of pure love, expecting nothing in return. Today, her love had come back to protect me, shielding me from the toxic greed of the people who were supposed to be my family. I signed the final trust documents, taking full control of the $5 million along with the liquidated proceeds from the mansion and business. But I didn't keep it all for myself. In honor of the woman who taught me strength and grace, I established the Evelyn Whitaker Caregiver Foundation, dedicating millions to support unpaid family caregivers who sacrifice everything to care for their loved ones in silence. Aunt Victoria and Richard were forced to sell their luxury cars, lease a tiny 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of town, and actually get real jobs for the first time in their lives. They tried to contest the will, but Grandma's rock-solid legal trap held up effortlessly in court. Standing by my grandmother's quiet resting place a few days later, I placed a bouquet of fresh yellow roses on the marble stone and smiled. She had proven that greed might strike first, but love and preparation will always win the final hand. Now, I have a question for all of you watching. If your family treated you this way, would you have given them a second chance, or would you let them face the full consequences of their actions? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to check out the other story on your screen now.